Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hey, hello there. Hi. Hello, young lovers. It's so neat being young. You young people. Of course, you're not listening to me. I'm getting a contact high from Celine's life. Yeah. Well, really, it is. It's wonderful. That doesn't happen to older people, you know. Young people. There's so many possibilities. There are fewer and fewer as you age, it seems. Or maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. So, I have a strange sound in my headphones. And I don't know if anybody else, you're not hearing that. Okay, so I'll just be annoyed. It's like there's a hurricane in the distance. Hey guys, so what's up? What's up? I must admit, I don't have a lot. I just don't have a lot on my. I don't have a lot of interest, I guess, is what's happening to me. Maybe I can't do this anymore. Because things that used to, like, interest me or I'd want to talk about, I now just have this weariness, right? Really, like, everything seems like we've been here before, right? Hey, did you hear H.W. Bush, the older, he has a biography coming out, I guess, by John Meacham. And in the biography, he says to Meacham that, what was it exactly? It was too funny. I thought I sent it to myself. That he didn't like Rumsfeld. He was an arrogant hard ass or something like that. I think that was the word. And he thought Cheney also used the word something like hard ass. And then he faulted his son, W., for letting Cheney, his vice president, get out of control. And, in fact, establish his own State Department is how Bush the Elder described it. So that to me is interesting, that he's willing to... I think the most interesting thing is willing to place the blame on George W. for having these neocons essentially take over. And in the book, I guess he says, you know, the usual line, no, it's the president's responsibility. The buck stops there. But when it comes to the Iraq War, of course, he still says, well, it was worth it. Saddam is out, and blah, 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 blah. Anybody who thinks that war is worth it either has a son to, protect or is deranged. I mean, I can't think of any other possibility. I tried for a long time to think that war, even though it shouldn't have been fought, maybe was okay. And you know why? I did it for my sister and for my niece, because if somebody you loved was killed in that war, some young, wondrous being, killed because they believed and they went to fight and protect us, literally. That was their desire. And they're blown to pieces. Well, you want that death to mean something. It makes it even harder. I mean, much harder. If you lose somebody like that, but you can take great comfort in, but he helped so many people. He sacrificed his life for so many others to live. And you can't say it. It's just a waste of humanity everywhere your eye looks. American, Iraqi, and all of it. And still going on. The waves still. The people still running, being blown to pieces, living in terror. Unbelievable. How anyone could possibly say. And an interesting thing that I read recently, that Donald Trump is the only, it's not the only Republican candidate for president. The only, this can't be true. This can't be true. I'm going to I can't. I'm going to take it back. But somehow he was the only one who has come out and said that the war in Iraq should never have been fought. It can't be true, but that Ben Carson didn't say that. And Barack Obama said it, for God's sakes. Hillary, on the other hand, voted for that war. So she's got, I don't know, what the hell does she say about that now? Oops. What do you say? God. Okay, so let's move on. I always think that I have squirreled away all this stuff, and then I get in here and I think, huh? Where is it? So a big thing going on today on CNN, and I think it's a fascinating story, has to do with Ben Carson, who you know is out in front. Latest polls, I guess, show him in a statistical tie with the Donald. Incredible, huh? Incredible. We're less now than a year away, which in American politics is getting really close. And these two are still way ahead of the rest of the pack. Okay, so the problem with getting up there is that you're under constant scrutiny, and people not only, they dig into every aspect of your life. And Ben Carson's life has been written about much. It's been a movie. There was a movie made about his life. Many documentaries. I mean, it's a celebrated life and an extraordinary story, right? The big thing on that story, though, is that he was heading where so many young black guys in Detroit, in that neighborhood, headed. He was heading into trouble. And that he was given to violent, aggressive acts, which he wrote about. One in which he slammed a heavy object of some sort, I can't remember what, into another kid's forehead and gashed his head. And the most celebrated one, the knife thrust into another kid's midsection who he was arguing with. And the story is that the knife hit the kid's belt buckle and broke, and he thus was saved from becoming a felon and a murderer. So CNN reporters started digging around, and they went and talk to the friends he had in grade school and in middle school and in high school, all the people who knew him then and were even friends of his then. And they talked to the neighbors on the street. And it was apparently a pretty tight-knit, little community where everybody knew everybody and everybody knew everybody's business. And to a person, every single person interviewed said that this picture that he has painted of himself as this aggressive, angry kid was not anybody they ever saw. He was described universally as soft-spoken, studious, exactly what you would expect. Soft-spoken, studious, very, very respectful, did whatever authority figures told him to do. Nerdy in that he, pocket pen protector, wearing person. Just an extraordinarily studious, good kid. And what these guys say is that when they read his book that he had written, they were simply shocked to read these stories because they were thinking, well, hell, I mean, if that happened, how didn't I know about it? You're in middle school. These are your guys. These are your friends. If you almost stabbed a kid and the kid was saved by his belt buckle, that's not something that is quiet. The other kid, and what the people are saying, and a lot of them really like him. They like him, but they are honest, and they saying, the person is unrecognizable to me, and that if something like that happened, it would have been all over the school in 2 seconds. Yet nobody knew it had ever happened. Now, the other weird thing about it is that Carson says he identifies both the people he attacked, one in the head and one in the... He identifies them only by a first name. And he has refused to identify them further. But these CNN reporters, going through yearbooks, asking everybody else who these people could have been, who did you know with that name who was the same age, who he would have been, and none of them can figure out who the hell it is that he supposedly hit in the head and who the hell it is that he supposedly stabbed or tried to stab. So is this not at all reminiscent of the other story regarding violence and aggression that Ben Carson told about being held up at gunpoint once at a Popeyes restaurant? In Baltimore, I believe. And that story's funny on so many levels because he said the guy approached and pointed the gun at him and said, "Give me your money." And I guess Carson said something like, "I'm not the guy with the money. He is." And he points to the hapless soul behind the counter who's in front of the cash register. Wow. Anyway, that was his story. The Baltimore police have absolutely no record of that incident at all. So I'm starting to get a queasy feeling here that Ben Carson has manufactured a life story. And here again, this is fascinating because his life story that we know is true is a hell of a story. So why do you embellish? And yet we see this over and over again. The truth somehow ain't good enough. That you need a little more. You need something, and maybe because he uses the violent stuff to explain how he got to God. And his support among evangelicals is what has helped him rise in politics. And that story, the base of that story is how he went from that angry, aggressive, potential incarcerated felon to a God-fearing good man was because after that event with the belt buckle, he realized, oh my God, I could have killed him. And how he went into his bathroom and he had a moment and he left the bathroom a different person. It was in the bathroom. It happened. So the problem with the story is nobody in his life can substantiate any of it. His mother is alive, but she has Alzheimer's. She can't be asked. But all his school buds, they can't believe it. They just can't believe it. Here's one of them, Gerald Ware. He said, the knife thing? I didn't know anything about that. I mean, it would have been all over the whole school. He says he went after his mother with a hammer, and but for his brother, would have maybe killed her. Who the hell knows? But this is, I mean, I don't know. This could be trouble. Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Lynn.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get back to that just real quick. The Iraq War and that. Did you happen to see Lindsey Graham on the other night? He was saying that when 9/11 hit, he said we didn't have anybody in Iraq. I mean, he said so our being involved over there anyway didn't have anything to do with 9/11. And we had mud all over the carpet. We had a big footprint over there. So for him to say that is a big. So what do? They decide to go into Iraq and make it even worse. That's why right now this whole ISIS thing, I don't believe anything they say. I don't care what they do. I don't believe it. I don't think they're that big of a threat. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. Politics is all it is.
You don't think ISIS is a threat?
Not that much of a threat now.
To us or to... You don't think
us.
it's... Okay, but you do see it as a threat to an awful lot of Muslims living...
Wars. They're just part of the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, it's a religious civil war.
Yeah. So it could go on with them or without them. For us to get more involved is about as stupid as we can be. I think we could stay back and watch. And we could blow them up anytime we want. I just don't understand us getting involved in these useless wars that don't even mean nothing. And that just keep on this.
Well, and that we never
game.
win them. We never win them. We only seem to make things worse. We kill people. We get people killed. Good people killed. We spend billions of dollars that could be used in this country where people are struggling. And it's insanity. It is. It's insanity. I don't pretend to understand any of it, but you don't want the fact that we've been hoodwinked before to get you to the point where you don't believe a word anybody in a governmental capacity says, because sometimes they're right.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be able to exercise some thought yourself. I mean, I struggled with whether or not we should go into Iraq because I didn't know who. I was hearing all this stuff, and what really I leaned toward going in when remember Powell. Why am I blanking on his? The Secretary of Defense at the time, Secretary of State or Defense, Colin Powell, went before the United Nations. And he gave, here's what they've got, and I admired him, and he was somebody I trusted. I didn't trust anything coming out of Cheney's mouth or Rumsfeld's mouth, but there's Colin Powell, and he really got me going this way. I was back, forth, and finally, I'm proud to say, before we invaded, I was saying, no, don't do this. I don't know. We've all got to, exercise some critical thought of our own. Although,
unless a missile comes into California,
you don't want to go to war.
Right. I don't.
I hear you. I do hear you.
To me, it's. We have a great air defense system.
Mm-hmm.
We could stop a lot of stuff. So, I don't understand why we get involved in that stuff when we can do it anytime we want. We could get involved anytime. Let it fight itself out. Let Syria do it. Let Russia do it.
You see, but
whoever else.
Okay, but then you're not dealing with geopolitics, because what happens if we sit it out? Then other actors move in to the vacuum our absence creates, and in this case, it's now Russia starting to cause trouble again on a global scale. And that can come back to hurt us. So sometimes I'm not so sure that we can completely not play in the game. And I think Obama's been trying so hard to stay out, and then every time he gets in, it's a little. I don't know.
People down on the ground, I don't agree with any of that.
Well,
and as far as Russia, they got in Afghanistan. Bogged down for 10 years, didn't do nothing. They went out with their tail between their legs. So I'm not really concerned about Russia doing too much. It's gonna bite them in the ass. That's how I look at it.
Well, a bear bitten in the ass is dangerous. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, maybe you're right. I don't know.
Is that your dog?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, thanks a lot.
Bye. Here's a kid who knew him in junior high. He was a quiet, shy kid, not too outgoing. Benny stayed home a lot or went to the library. We would have been at the ball field, so maybe he would have come by to watch. Never heard anything about bricks or bats or assaults. And when asked if he knew about Carson once stabbing a friend, Dixon said he hadn't, although maybe there was a rumor. Yeah, so the victim of the attack has been identified as Bob. So, Bob, people want to know, are you the guy who got saved by your belt buckle? The potential future of the world depends on it. Would you please let us know? Oh, God. So, there you have it. Oh, so it just goes on and on. I mean, people who live next door were baffled when they heard about that he was given to anger and violent outbursts. Both said they found it absolutely impossible to reconcile with the polite boy next door who went to school in his ROTC uniform and often was toting a musical instrument in its case. And they said the account of Carson going after his mother with a hammer is particularly difficult to fathom. That just seems so out of character. I mean, this is just truly hard to believe. I mean, it's just impossible. I mean, he never even talked back to her or anything. All right. I don't know. But, you know, it's odd. If this never happened, if those things never happened, it's really odd that you would have to create that to well, actually with him though, he's so dull. He's so somnolent. He's so, I mean, man, you know, you could market him really as a sleep, you know, something to help you go to sleep. His monotone delivery, this sort of like he's like he's taken 20 Xanax. And that kind of, maybe he felt he had to be more interesting. And it would make it more interesting to have this sort of Jekyll and Hyde story. And then God rescuing him. Maybe, I mean, there's nothing that the Republican base likes better than that story, than that kind of a narrative. They love sinners who come to God. They love them. That's why if you find dirt on a Republican, it can be adultery, it can be murder, who knows. You think they ever, like, they still hang with them. They hang with them. Well, he believes in God. He's been saved. So, okay. I've talked about this before, but I am about to say I am on the same wavelength. I am totally behind an effort by Senator John McCain, Republican of Arizona, and Jeff Flake, another Republican. I'm with them. I am so with them. Because they are furious that the military has been paying, I've talked about this before, has been paying sports teams to have these patriotic displays they have, you know? So when you go to a Pirate game on a Sunday, and all of a sudden you have to stand up, and before you can do "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," before you can do that, you now have to go through this thing where everybody stands up and you're told that you are going to salute a brave American who fought in Afghanistan and blah, blah, and some poor soul gets trotted out onto the field and we all cheer and whoop. Hey, he's a hero, he's a hero. And then somebody with often not a great voice sings "God Bless America." And I remember the first time it happened, I thought, oh, well, maybe this is just, you know, a thing for today. But it wasn't. It was every Sunday game. You had to go through this. And another person trotted out, and another person, "God bless America." I'm thinking, I went to a baseball game. I want to sing "Take Me Out to the..." Come on. This is a seventh inning stretch. It's not some ridiculous, crazed patriotic display. Oh, yeah, it is. But guess what? That was bad enough as far as I was concerned. I don't like people forcing me into some phony bunch of patriotism. But when I heard that the Pirates were getting paid to do it, I didn't know who I was more. I am sickened by the Pirates accepting money for something like. If you're going to do a patriotic display, you don't need to get paid. And that the only way the Defense Department could get people to be patriotic was to give money to football teams and baseball teams to do these phony things, and when you go to Lambeau Field for a Packer game, man, you cannot start the game without a, serious rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner, at the end of which, on the nose, home of the brave, you hear roar, and like 3 fighter jets just zoom, come out of nowhere and fly over the field, and everybody erupts. Yeah! Now, the first time I saw it, I thought, that's wow, woo! It is amazing how fast they're going. It's amazing they can get it so that they can do it so that they actually hit their cue right on home of the brave. They're going 1,000 miles an hour, and bam! Packers got paid. In fact, the Packers, I think, are one of the teams that have gotten the most money for this crap. So John McCain heard about this, and he got as pissed off as I am. Yes! And he said this: while I appreciate it if they honor our men and women in uniform, they shouldn't get paid for it. Fans and troops are led to believe that these presentations are purely motivated by patriotism. It's disgusting. I think they're going to jump on the military ain't going to be paying these guys anymore, is I think what's going to happen. And that's, and do you think all these teams will be as patriotic as they were? I hope not, because I don't go to a sports game to get this ham-fisted, militaristic, patriotic display. I don't. Jeez, the Wisconsin National Guard paid the Brewers $50,000 just to sing "God Bless America." I could get up I'm going to get up. We could crowdsource this. I'll get the Pirates $50,000 from the fans not to sing "God Bless America," if that's all it takes. Jerks. The Jets received $20,000 to salute 2 soldiers as hometown heroes. They do this at all the games all the time. Anyone who goes knows it. But you didn't know that the teams were just pocketing money. Taxpayer dollars. They were taking money that you gave that was supposed to keep us safe. Over the past 4 years, the Army National Guard, they're the biggies, the Army National Guard and other branches of the military have signed agreements worth as much as $6.8 million, which they have given to these revoltingly rich professional football, baseball, and I'm not sure, and they say other sports leagues. I don't know about basketball. So Senators Flake and McCain are offering up an amendment to the military spending bill that would prohibit the use of taxpayer money for military tributes at sporting events. Now, for Republicans to say, no, you want to do it because you mean it, fine. I'm with that, totally with them. Watch the military tribute start disappearing, guys. All right. Do the Steelers have that flyover at every home game? See, I I have tickets to Packer games. I don't have tickets to Steeler games, so I don't know. Do they do that? 3 jets. 3 unbelievable. I mean, it is breathtaking. The power and the, and the speed and the timing. But every Lambeau game, that's just a thing that happens. And of course, I always thought, geez, that costs money. You got to get those jets up. You got to, make sure they're flying. There's no Air Force base in Green Bay, so they come up. And I often fly in, and I'll see them parked at the, our little Green Bay airport. Because if I'm flying in when there's a Packer game. But I don't know that they do that here for every game. Okay, Margie says Carson is fucking nuts. Okay. Yeah. He's odd. Man, he's odd. Oh, what was he saying the other? Oh, he thinks he's standing by. People are digging into things he said and now saying, do you still stand by your statement, blah, blah, blah. And the latest one is, do you still stand by your statement that the pyramids were built by Joseph? So this would be, Joseph, one of Abraham's sons, right? Who his brothers screwed him up and blah, 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 and he went to Egypt. You remember him and he had dreams? Do you remember? You remember your Old Testament? Your Old Testament. And, and the Pharaohs thought a lot of, they got into Joseph, they got into Moses, but he says that Joseph, who did predict famine, did he not? Yes, in his dreams. He dreamt of famine, and he told the Pharaoh, you've got to store grain so your people don't starve. Carson says the pyramids were built as grain silos. Now, fine, that sounds like, okay, all right. The problem here is that there is not a single archaeologist who agrees, or a historian, there's not a single person who has expertise who would agree with that, and he's standing by it. I guess he thinks they were silos and every once in a while you threw a mummified, royal person in amidst the grain. Wow. And there are people who think this guy should be the president of the United States. What scares me is my fellow Americans. They're scaring the shit out of me with their stupidity. All right. Now what? Mexico. So, did you see the Mexican Supreme Court has said, wait a minute. Mexico has some of the toughest pot laws in the hemisphere. And the Supreme Court there just said, you can't keep people from growing pot for their own personal use. That ain't no crime. So, add Mexico, surprisingly, to the train is leaving the station, guys. You can jump on or not. Uruguay has already totally said it's cool. 23 U.S. states allow now medical pot. Chile is debating decriminalizing pot for recreational and medicinal purposes. The new Canadian Prime Minister, cutie boy Trudeau, who just took over the other day, it has ran as part of his platform on legalizing marijuana. But so I'm reading this article, and this is from Reuters, and then at the end of the article they say this, but this Mexican decision comes a day after American legalization advocates were dealt a setback in a lopsided Ohio vote against allowing pot for both medical and recreational use. That is shit journalism. Right there. That is crap. It is incorrect. People who favored legalization voted against that bill. So that, I read things like that and I want to get, I go nuts. I really do. Misinformation, it's all around us. It's everywhere. Be wary. Be very, very wary. All right, so a woman named Ellen Doyle, who is an attorney in Pittsburgh, has, you keep hearing about those emails that the Supreme Court Justice, who's still on the court, Eakin, supposedly was receiving and maybe sending on. I hate these things. Well, these things, these. Can you see this? Yeah. On your shirt, you roll them up, you roll your sleeves up, and then they give you this thing which you're supposed to then and button. Now, on this shirt, which was not a cheap shirt, this thing is 20 feet long, which renders it totally useless because if I button it, what's it holding up? There's this thing. So I just try to forget. I say, you're not even there. And I roll up it the old-fashioned way, and it still falls out. It's always falling. It's driving me crazy. I should cut it off, right? That's what I'm going to do. I don't know why for years. I'm going to cut the goddamn thing off. So, this group, an all-male Pittsburgh law firm, Del Sol Kavanaugh Stroid, was tasked with reviewing his emails for the Supreme Court. And they did that, and they issued a report October 30th saying that, quote, some of the materials that the justice sent and many that he received were of serious concern. Nevertheless, the firm recommended no immediate discipline and instead called for a second private proceeding. Okay, so Ellen Doyle, who writes a column, who's written an op-ed piece, says, it just shows again how thinking violence against women doesn't matter is still just pervasive. Because the emails that he was sending are just, they're misogynistic. Hello.
Hi, Lynn. How are you today?
I am okay.
That describes my basic feeling as well. I think because, like you, I'm just frightened by, let's not call it the stupidity, but the ignorance and apathy of the American people, particularly with my growing realization that not only has one of our only two main political parties been overtaken by kooks, demagogues, and opportunists, but this party is still entirely capable of winning not only at the state, but potentially the national level as well.
That's true.
Regarding Dr. Carson, he's a perfect example of an entirely compartmentalized intellect.
Exactly.
He's a world-class elite surgeon. When it comes to other areas of science or history, particularly those that can conflict with his faith, he's a moron.
Mm-hmm.
He makes statements about evolution and about cosmology and about archaeology, which not only are not right, they're not even wrong, because he just willfully refuses to even attempt to understand what scientists actually say. And this is one of the top-tier candidates for the Republican Party right now, along with a man who's just clearly a cynical opportunist.
Donald Trump. I have to admit, I like him more than I ever have, just because I see that he clearly understands what he's doing.
Absolutely.
And he's totally sort of he's pulling the curtain back from the absurdity of what has become of our of the way we elect presidents. I mean,
you know what? I'll have to walk it back. I don't know that he's particularly cynical. I mean, I think he plays the crowds like a fiddle. I mean, I don't think he believes half of what he says, but I don't know that he's even really making that much of a pretense of pretending to believe it. And one of the best things he ever did was when Rand Paul, tried to go after him, and he said, "Yeah, I give money to Hillary Clinton and other Democratic politicians, and I've given plenty of money to you too, Rand." And that was beautiful.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Well,
but I mean,
it's having that rich guy who's played the game from that side, call him on it. That's right. Well, sure, I'm giving money to whoever's going to be in power because then they do what I want them to do. He flat out said it during the first debate.
Yeah.
Loved it.
And I have to admit, compared to the other candidates up there on stage, he doesn't look terribly bad.
No, I know. You know what? You know what? This is amazing. He's starting to look okay.
I mean,
the others are so bad.
He has no policies whatsoever. He says ridiculous things, but I mean, so do they all. So
oh dear. At least he's entertaining. That's it.
Yeah.
At least he entertains you, and so makes the guys you can't stand go insane. I mean, I love that he's driving them crazy.
I know, but here's what I'm going to, when I say ignorance and apathy, I mean, Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
The voters in places like Lexington were too lazy to get off their asses and go out and vote.
Yeah.
And then, so that's the apathy and the laziness part of it. The indolence, I suppose you could call it. And then you have the people in the rural counties who came out in droves for Bevin.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, okay, Kentucky's Medicaid expansion, and they're...
those are the people who've gotten insurance for the first time.
Yeah, connect.
And he wants to take it away from them.
And he said that.
And they voted for him.
The rate of uninsured from 20% to under 10%. Those are the people who've benefited from it.
And they voted for it. It's stupidity. It's just, I don't know what else to say. Just unbelievable
they got to protect
stupidity.
people like Kim Davis from having to issue marriage licenses to gay people.
Yeah.
I mean, what's health care compared to that?
Oh, dear. Well, yeah, I hear you.
And then, but the other thing that drives me loony is that we have an American media that refuses to call, the Democratic Party usually refuses to call the Republicans lunatics.
Right.
You have Chris Christie made a fine speech. I don't really particularly like the guy's policies, his personality. I think it's pretty easy to bully someone if you're behind a row of state troopers and the only one in the room with a microphone.
Exactly.
Nonetheless, okay, he made a very, fine speech about losing a peer and a friend who became drug addicted, and about how it can happen to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, pundits like, well, he's going to rise, and this is really going to have an impact. It's not going to have any impact. That's not what Republican voters want.
They don't care about that stuff. But I don't know. In regard to media not calling these pals on their stuff, thank God is what I want to say. Thank God for the comedians who do those late night shows now, because they do. That's how. I mean, Jon Stewart isn't there anymore, but Trevor Noah and Colbert and Larry. Yeah, absolutely. Those guys are, and younger Americans are getting their news from them, so they're getting the picture painted properly. It's the older Americans who keep watching the mainstream media, because broadcast news is an outrage now. It is an outrage, and it's a misinformer. I got to go. I gotta go.
I don't know. I mean, it's...
Well, go out and enjoy the nice day.
In any sane world, someone like Ben Carson or Ted Cruz or some of these others would just be laughed off the stage.
Yes, I know, but this is America, and God bless it. Okay? Goodbye.
Bye.
God bless it. Beth writes, I would like to see those team owners shamed. Don't hold your breath. And have to give the money back. Considering the taxpayers have already paid for their damn stadiums, that's a good point. The problem is most of these teams all have foundations or charities, 401c3s. For example, Pirate Charities or the Rooney Foundation. And if these teams are shamed, they could not only give the money back to the DOD, but get a tax write-off giving the money back from these foundations and charities. Oh, God. And then Beth says, please share where you got the saying, if a bear gets bitten in the ass. I just got it out of my head. I mean, I was thinking, Russia is caricatured as a bear. So when I said, be careful if a bear gets bitten in the... I mean, you don't want to rouse the Russian bear, is what I was saying, I believe. NP, about military flyovers. I think the reason for the military sporting event activities is for recruiting purposes. It's intended to get people thinking about enlisting. That being said, I also think the sports teams should allow these activities free of charge as a patriotic gesture. If they want to do it, I guess fine. It's their ballpark. But to be paid for it, that's disgusting. It's disgusting. Okay. Well, you know what? I was talking about these misogynistic... For instance, here's this guy sitting on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And one of the things in his emails was a poster titled Sexism. And then it said under it, only ugly bitches complain about it. That's a justice on our Supreme Court who's still on the court. And that's the justice that this all-male Pittsburgh law firm said, while there's some things here of concern, they recommended no. And that's not all. I mean, there was a poster showing there was a joke about a wife whose husband, quote, beat her to a pulp so she would keep her mouth shut. I mean, this, if justices, what an honorific that doesn't apply. If justices are parlaying in this level of misogyny, a naked, fat woman on her hands and knees wearing pig ears and a snout. This is what a justice of the Supreme Court well, more than one. One of them is gone already. This one ain't gone. We just happily put 3 good people of good character on the court. But this guy should be gone. Despicable. Hello.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike from D.C.
Hi, Mike from D.C.
I know you moved on to another topic,
It's okay.
But the military flyovers for the National Guard is because their pilots have to get so many hours of training in order to be in compliance and able to fly those planes. So they have to come up with something for them to do to get them in that plane. And that military flyover, I'm guessing, is different than the whole God Bless America business.
Okay, so you don't think those are the same thing?
They're not connected at all. Otherwise, when they have them at the 4th of July and all that kind of stuff. Every time you see one of those events, it's because those pilots have to practice flying those planes. And all that money that's used to keep those planes up has to be used in order so that if they need to down a plane and wherever, they'll be able to do that and know how to get in and out of the plane. And they do need to practice. And it is expensive to practice. And a good argument is, why do we have them and why are they trained in them? But I'm guessing that what I know about the National Guard Bureau is they need the practice.
Okay.
And you remember George Bush? And have you seen that movie about him, by the way, about with Kate Blanchett?
No.
About his National Guard experience and that whole business that came out with Dan Rather?
Oh, the Dan Rather one, Truth.
Yeah.
No, I have not.
It's an interesting movie. I mean, they ruined both him and his, you should see it because you were in the business, his producer.
Yeah, Makes.
But it goes into that he didn't even show up for his practice flights. And then they came back and said, well, you need to lie. And one guy said, I won't lie. And how the story fell apart was because the producer didn't do her due diligence because they were rushing her to get on the air. She said, I need 2 more weeks to do this. And they said, no, you have to go on Sunday. But it's an interesting story, particularly for a reporter.
Okay. I mean, I've read quite a bit about it. I can't see Robert Redford as Dan Rather, though.
Yeah, it was a little disconcerting.
I bet Dan Rather loved it. But, yeah.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, right.
Who would play you in a movie?
I can't imagine.
Kate Blanchett?
Huh?
Kate Blanchett?
Oh, no. I don't know. Give me who did my son once say should play me in a movie? Quentin Tarantino. I don't know.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a good day. Quentin.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, thanks. Bye. I know I haven't talked at all about this problem he's got with... Who's he got the problem with? Fox News and a bunch of, thin-skinned cops. And I'm not going to talk about the cop story out of Illinois because ain't that a wowie? Because the way that story ran, and that was jumped on, that story was used immediately to denigrate the Black Lives Matter movement. Do you remember? So this cop gets blown away in northern Illinois, little town. And everybody says, you see, cops are just being killed now because of these they're just being targeted because of Black Lives Matter. And Fox News went nuts about it, believe me. Yeah, if you could go back to and look at what O'Reilly and Hannity and all those jerks were saying about, And now, wow. So I guess we should all really be careful, all of us, because we're all capable of jumping to conclusions. I am going to read you something that is so grotesque and awful, and I'm warning you, okay? I'm going to say words that I have never uttered myself. Yeah. But I'm getting this from a complaint to the federal court in, I believe, D.C., and this is a case of 5 military women against the Department of Defense because they were sexually harassed. And in the complaint, they explain one of the things that one of the plaintiffs had to deal with on a daily basis. Constant sexual harassment, constantly being around sexually hostile environments, displays of pornography, including, these are things, thousands of these things that are stored, of course, on government computers. And her fellows in the military would sing songs in groups. And here are the lyrics. It's the lyrics of one such song that she says was sung often in her presence. And if anyone would complain, they were openly mocked. And in fact, the song I'm about to share the lyrics of with you, a note went up in whatever the common room is. Note, if offended, refer to blanket apology letter. And if you're not a fighter pilot, then beat it, you fuck. That's what it says. Okay, but so, will you listen to this? It's to the tune of the Candyman, only it's the S&M man. Are you ready? It's hard to even imagine. This is what our women in uniform have to deal with. Who can take 2 ice picks, stick 'em in her ears, ride her like a Harley while you fuck her in the rear? The Candyman can. No, the S&M man, the S&M man, because he mixes it with love and makes the hurt feel good. The hurt feel good. Who can take a machete, whack off all her limbs, throw her in the ocean and try to watch her swim? The S&M man, the S&M man. Who can take a chainsaw, cut the bitch in two? This half is for me and the other half's for you. Who can take 1 ice pick, stick it in her ear, sit back and watch her bleed to death while you have another beer? Who can take a lady, throw her in the road, shove a grenade up her cunt, and watch the bitch explode? Who can take 2 jumper cables, connect them to her tits, start up the engine, and electrify the bitch? Who can take a cheese grater, strap it to his arm, ram it up her cunt, and make a pussy parmesan? Can you even believe? I would never. This is in. Believe me, a federal court is getting this. The judges will look at this. I mean, it is so. It is. You've come a long way, baby. Anyway, that's a precursor. The attorney in this case is Susan Burke, who we're trying to book for next week. She's coming into Pittsburgh, going to be doing a speech at Pitt and a few other events. You cannot imagine. And if you have not seen it, they'll also be showing The Invisible War, which got an Academy Award nomination, and that is a documentary about the absolute despicable environment that women in our military and serving in hostile territories not only have to deal with a war they're in, but with this level of harassment. Doesn't quite rise to the level of what I would call I mean, it's so beyond it. Unbelievable. Still a man's world. See you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.